this technology came to me, and gave me more abilities. And I think that that's true for everyone. But now you don't need to be in proximity of any big market. You don't need to be mentored by a director of photography. You don't need anyone's permission or funding. You can take your idea like you did and go as far as you want with it. And, now the sky is the limit, and it's only growing. I mean, how long before you'll be able to make a short film with your avatar easily, or
Today's guest is a true innovator at the intersection of artificial intelligence and storytelling. Erich Archer is an Emmy Award-winning television producer and executive director of 623 Studios, where he is refining the role of AI in media. With more than 20 years in the industry, he's worked with major networks like NBC, Fox, and MTV, and now leads groundbreaking AI projects, including the award-winning short film Rufus and The First Artist. He's also the creator of Smarty Pants, an ecosystem of over 100 AI tools empowering creators. Erich's work is setting new standards in digital media, and we can't wait to dive in with his insights today. Welcome to our show, Erich.
thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Going back on the topic of expertise and coming into your core values or core expertise, the Midjourney, for example, was my first impact with, and so I think that's really interesting that you also had that same kind of thing. For me, it was a funny thing. I had found it and started tinkering with it, and then my wife and son got on it just prior to Christmas and started creating Santa Clauses of various types. And that has become kind of a benchmarking thing for me. Every year I do a post about Santa Clauses, and there are various Santa Clauses, like Santa Claus as Popeye, Santa Claus as superheroes, Santa Claus as XYZ, and just seeing the improvements over the years, it's been really fascinating. So I love what you did with, and I'm guessing that it was Midjourney that you used for the Rufus video, and then what was the tool that you used to animate those still images?
Thank you. Yeah. So it was Midjourney to generate the imagery for that project. And then I went back and forth between two tools, Runway, which I still use all the time, and a tool that was called Leapix back then, which is now changed to Immersity with an I. And the difference is you're probably familiar with Runway in the way that that takes image to video, but what Immersity did was a little less well, so it was more of a parallax effect. So it would sort of like extract the shapes from within the image and allow you some control over how you
Oh, that's
manipulate
cool.
them. So that
Oh, that's fantastic.
there's less making up of stuff like Runway's going to do, generating parts of the image, and more of just like a little bit of an elevated Ken Burnsy vibe, you know.
Mhm.
So that's depending on how much detail was in the image and whether or not I thought Runway was going to just struggle with the amount of detail. Um, or if I thought it could animate, I would kind of choose and use the motion brush and Runway and different things like that.
Oh,
Very neat.
I've never used the motion brush. In fact, I was using Runway this weekend. Jacob and I were screwing around with, I was preparing for a Dungeons and Dragons game, and I wanted to have some animation for my players. And there's a tool called Hey Gen. It creates audio.
You're familiar with
And
it?
you can put in a script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I used that to create the script. Then I created the background image with the Sphinx that I had. And then I put it all together in Adobe Premiere. And my players really enjoyed that. They thought that was fantastic.
I bet. That's amazing. I love that. I mean, I think that's what's so exciting about all this is that we all just have so much more creative ability. I mean, you couldn't do that a couple of years ago, not easily, you know.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about AI in general. It allows us creatives, and my brother, he would say he's not creative, but I disagree with that. I think everybody's creative in their own sphere. He's a lawyer by profession, and he's creative in that sphere. I draw and do this, you do videos, and so we look at things, and the tools, the AI tools like Midjourney and Runway, they allow us to get all that garbage and stuff that's in our heads out fast so that we can look at it and go, that works, that doesn't, that works, that doesn't, and make better and faster selections. What do you think about that? How has that impacted you and your work?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, this technology came to me, and gave me more abilities. And I think that that's true for everyone. When I got started, my options coming out of school with a film studies degree were like, you move to New York or you move to LA if you want to do this for real. And so that's what I did. And then it was, you know, all the ladders that you got to climb and all the luck you have to have. And the idea that you would ever get something of your own made was like, yeah, right. Even in the industry, in the big market, trying my hardest, there was no shot anything was ever getting made that was my idea. Yeah, I might have a little impact here and there on something, but now you don't need to be in proximity of any big market. You don't need to be mentored by a director of photography. You don't need anyone's permission or funding. You can take your idea like you did and go as far as you want with it. And, now the sky is the limit, and it's only growing. I mean, how long before you'll be able to make a short film with your avatar easily? Or
I like what you said, permission. That word, now we have these tools and you have permission to do whatever you want and however you want. You can express your vision rather than, using someone else's vision to grow your own stuff. I mean, it's definitely come a long way. We see this with YouTube and content creators. And now,
Generally, yeah.
everybody has access to these, and I would say fairly cheap tools. Runway is fairly inexpensive for doing some really amazing things. ChatGPT, $20. Midjourney,
Right.
32. So yeah.
Yeah, one of my questions for you, Eric, is when I think about artists, because we've talked to some Midjourney experts, and it's really fascinating. Like just seeing your portfolio of videos here, it's really cool because we've seen video AI and we've seen Midjourney AI, but when you talk to somebody who's good at art and then they encounter AI, they make amazing things with Midjourney. And so when you encounter somebody who's skilled at video and you see what they can do with AI, like it's very impressive. And so when I think about this, like with art, if you're going to make an oil painting, you've got to learn how to oil paint. If you're going to make a wood carving, you've got to practice with that material. And then if you want to make a sculpture with marble, you've got to practice with that material. What are the materials that you practice that allow you to do what I think is exceptional video with AI? Like, how do you conceptualize or interact with the tools to get what I consider to be like professional quality output, video output from what you're doing?
in my case, I did all of the traditional stuff to get here. I got the degree and I did the certifications and I went to the places where all the big stuff was happening and worked my way up and all that. And so it would be hard to sort of bottle all that up and say, well, this is what somebody could do. But I mean, what I find is the best place to start with any idea is ChatGPT. Bring your idea to ChatGPT as a strategic thought partner and try to level it up and learn what you don't know. Even now, even though I've made a million videos, there's still parts of things I've not encountered before, or they're new because it's AI. And I can go to ChatGPT now as a teacher and be like, you know, um, I'm at a transition here, and I know there's a sound effect that's appropriate for it, but I don't know what it's called, and I kind of describe it, and then I figure out what it is, and I get a prompt, and I can go to 11 Labs and have that sound effect made all instantly. So I can learn instantly and apply it with real assets. And it's such an interesting way of working that way, where you're like generating your ideas instantly. You put them right in your sequence, you test them out, you see what's working, what's not, and you can consult with ChatGPT the entire way. Like I'm stuck, I'm trying to make a suspense sequence and I can't figure out the sequence of compositions to make it suspenseful. How would Steven Spielberg do it? And oh well, you're going to start with this kind of shot, and you're going to
I
then
like
your
that.
next nine shot. You know what I mean? Um, And then you can go and you can pull the literal frames from Jurassic Park into Midjourney and be like, use this as a style reference or composition reference or whatever. And like,
Yeah.
it's like all clay. It's clay, you're just, it's an incredible different experience. So I start in ChatGPT typically with an idea or just a raw idea and try to level it up and just get it to a place where it's a little more robust and it's, got some heft to it in terms of like rigor and research and thinking and outlines of how I might proceed and that kind
Just
of thing.
curious
And then
about the
go from
grabbing
there.
the screenshots from, say, Jurassic Park, using them as a style reference. How concerned? I mean, how much time do you spend thinking about copyright concerns, stuff like that, in relation to AI? Because you're creating full-on videos. You're a true content creator with it. So how concerned are you about copyright protection, those kinds of things?
In my personal case, not much, because I know how far I'm gonna get from, let's say I take a frame from Jurassic Park, like I literally, like there's a great tool called Shot Deck. Are you familiar with Shot Deck?
No.
You should check it out. It's really cool. You can find frames from all your favorite movies and search by all kinds of cool stuff like composition or color or camera or all kinds. So if you're trying to like put an aesthetic together literally based on feature films, you can do that. And I've done that. Like when I go find for my last piece, the first artist, I thought, oh, it's kind of like a Last of the Mohicans vibe, so I could go to Shot Deck and get Last of the Mohicans and look at all the frames and be like, oh, that's how they did that, and get some ideas. And in terms of copyright, I'm going to pull those in and I'm going to use them as reference, like I would have 3 years ago, instead of
Mm-hmm.
looking at that and going, okay, I kind of see it. I'm going to try to mimic that. Now I can pull it in and go, okay, this is a style reference. And now I want to make my shot in the style of this, but let's also mix in a little bit of that and this. And then let's make some iterations of these photos. And then my prompt's going to change a little bit. So by the time I'm done, I'm a mile away from anything of anyone else's. It's just a reference
Yeah.
at the end of
I
the
mean, that's
day.
the creative process generally. You hear stuff, you see stuff, and you make it your own. When you create your own thing. I just know that it's been an ongoing like concern. So the
Yeah.
Copyright Office this week published some guidance, and we're looking through it. So we might have an update on copyright and
Oh,
AI from the
interesting.
Copyright Office. Yeah. I was just talking to James
Yeah,
about
I
it
saw
before we
that.
hopped on. So
Yeah, that's great that that came out so quickly. I think, we need that kind of guidance.
we'll see if it's great after I read
We'll
it.
see. Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm one of those that looks at it, and I think that obviously the underlying copyright owners that feed the databases should receive something. But I'm one that also believes that what is generated, the output, should be your copyright. Like if you make something, because I view these things as tools. Like nobody looks at something you write using Microsoft Word and says, well, Microsoft Word, Microsoft owns the copyright. Like that would be absurd. I feel the same way about these tools because I feel like they are tools. And when I see somebody like you, or we talk to another artist who does amazing things with Midjourney, when she uses Midjourney, like you can't replicate it. She's just that good. And so when I see stuff like what you're creating or what she's creating, it becomes very clear that you're the author of the work. You should have copyright ownership of it. So, but I am always curious how people feel about that.
I think it's like today's VCR. You know what I mean? Like you could pirate stuff if you set out to do that with a VCR. You could, back in the day, you could
Right.
rip
Right.
off stuff with that tool. But for the most part, people use it for its original intent.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your work with GPTs, and I think that my other question the question that Jacob and I both have is the Smarty Pants thing that you have,
Mm.
and how that came to be. What was the concepting there, and tell us more about that. Explain that to us, number one, and then tell us how that concept came to be.
Sure. Well, right around when Midjourney came out, ChatGPT came out. So I dove into ChatGPT too. It just seemed like, oh, here's a real obvious resource. I mean, it was. And then when the custom GPTs came out, I started to mess around with those and had an early use case within my work, within television work, for custom GPTs. I had seen a document that I knew came out with some regularity, and if I could process this document with GPTs or make GPTs that could process it, there was going to be value there because I could do this repetitively. This document was going to come out every quarter or something like that, and I wanted to be able to process it really quickly and turn it into creative briefs, basically. And so I thought, you know, a GPT is going to help me do that really quickly. Going through that process, I realized that that really just wasn't working, and I was trying to figure out why it wasn't working. And ultimately, what I figured out was that if I was asking it to do too many things at once, and the more I reduced what I asked it to do, the more reliable the output became. And so I just went down to one thing at a time, and then manually taking the output to the next GPT. And that started to really work. It was like, oh, okay, well, if I just take this document and I make a GPT to just, you know, process it and put it in the format I like, you know, markdown, bulleted, flesh it out a little bit,
There you
whatever.
go.
And then the next
Speaking our
one,
language.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, um, and then, you know, maybe add like some network guidelines or some market research or a thumbnail from Dolly. And I just started to kind of like add to this sequence of things that I wanted these GPTs to do whenever this document came out. And that was just sort of an unlock that I carried with me into future GPT building, which is that like a modular approach where these things are just little precision tools that can work as a kind of a collection of tools. You know, you're building your own toolkit now that you can literally take with you anywhere. Like, it's kind of cool to think, all right, I've got a couple hundred tools that I can bring with me into the future. I can give them to my kids, like, kind of interesting. And so the Smarty Pants thing came along because I started to realize like, okay, well, most information is known by ChatGPT now. It's like, you know, let that sink in for a minute. It's kind of wild. Like, so,
Yeah.
you know, every business framework, mental model, all that stuff, it already knows. So you can basically just be like, well, perform a SWOT analysis. And, you know, you know, an analysis that like when I got hired, I didn't know how to do. I didn't even know it was a thing. I've been an executive director for 12 years, but when I got hired, it was the first time I'd been in management. I didn't know what a SWOT analysis was, let alone how to conduct one. But I was sitting on all of the information that I had to conduct it. You
Right.
know, I had done the research. I knew what was relevant to my organization, but it was how do you put it into these quadrants and figure out how to think about it. But ChatGPT knows how to do all that. I was like, well, all right, maybe I could just make a GPT that just does that for me anytime I need a SWOT analysis. It could just give me a Q&A of like, all right, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, okay, well, that worked pretty well. What other analyses are out there? What other frameworks and models does ChatGPT already know? And I can just put a wrapper around this information and keep it and use it whenever I want. You know, it's not profound to have ChatGPT conduct a pestle analysis. You just have to give it the information. It knows how to do it already. So it's all just hundreds of little wrappers.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Jacob and I have found out with our use of it is that it's really, really good at analyzing things. If you give it, like you're saying, you give it that thing and then you focus it, that specificity, saying, do this one thing, it really shines when it's analyzing data that you've provided. So we're big fans of that particular type of use case for GPT or Claude or whatever tool that you're currently using. They all do a pretty good job, and our favorite definitely is ChatGPT.
Well, yeah. I mean, you hear about DeepSeek and other things, but ChatGPT has been great. It also makes sense to me how you have custom GPTs for each different kind of analysis. Is that what you've done with the Smarty Pants diagram? Yeah, so that to me is brilliant because you're right. Like as you give it too much, it gets less good at it. So it has to be a specialized set of instructions for each type of analysis. But what I think makes it work, and I haven't played with your Smarty Pants thing here yet, but I plan to. What I think makes it work is ChatGPT still doesn't think. We talked to someone a couple of weeks ago, and she's all like, "Well, it still doesn't think, really, not truly." But like you said, it has all the information. It knows how to do some of these things, and so by taking your manual output from something else and giving it to ChatGPT again in a new context, you're doing the thinking process in between the two chats. And so I think that that's highly valuable. I think it's a really cool concept.
I think you really hit on like what I like most about it, which is that it enables human in every loop. Like, you can really kind of use the manual aspect of it to kind of throttle how automated you want it to be, and really make sure, like, whether it's quality control or like a human decision, or you want to apply a human intuition somewhere, it gives you all these different opportunities to do that. So you can make all the like the the mechanisms and then put the people in between, if that makes sense, or
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
in
Oh
my
yeah.
case,
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
Human
that's
in
what.
the loop is a phrase we hear constantly, is keeping a human in
Yeah.
the loop. Go ahead, Warren.
And that's what we say to everybody in every conversation I think we've ever had about artificial intelligence, is that you must use your expertise to generate the best results. Like, I couldn't get the same results that you can get generating video. I'm not going to get the same results that Sherry gets when she's manipulating Midjourney in the fashion sense and in the way she works. It's just not duplicable. We can't. Jacob and I tried, and we failed. So
Right, yeah.
she and you both have your expertise, and just like I do, when it comes to some types of art and commercial real estate, that's one of my focuses with my other job that's not this. So, it's the expertise that we bring and that human understanding of those areas. And because we have that knowledge, we can say, oh, this is a good result, or this is trash. And unless we continue to have that human element, we're still going to have the issues with bad content. And Jill last week, she told us not to say hallucination anymore.
Right.
She told us just to say an error because
that's a good suggestion. Yeah.
It didn't think, like Jacob was just saying, it didn't think, it just made an error in its, what was the term that she used, Jacob?
Well, she pointed out that for the GPT, it's not actually making an error. It's doing what it's programmed to do, right? Like, it did the statistical analysis, and its statistical analysis was 100% correct, because it's not getting that part wrong, but it's not thinking enough in the sense that it knows that it is making an error. We call it a hallucination because, but again, it's also not like seeing a mirage in the distance in the desert, right? Like, it's not hallucinating. It's just doing its thing. So it's an interesting way to like step back and say, let's make sure we conceptualize this right. So we'll release that interview soon. You should, if you're interested. She was a good commenter.
I was just thinking about it this morning. Like, maybe that's all that's going to be left for us is our unique value. Like, truly all that makes us unique, because everything else will be known if it isn't already. Like, all of how business is done is, when you break it down into its smallest parts, is really not always that complex. But what ChatGPT will never be able to make up that that unique makeup that is us, with our complex intersections of what we're interested in and good at and knowledgeable and all that sort of stuff. So I think we need to be minding ourselves.
Right, you're in the creative field, so you'll understand this probably a lot better than many. Is that our unique experiences, how we've grown and lived our lives, bring a lot to that our understanding and inference. And then when we're creative, when we're in that creative mindset, making those leaps to things and then combining them in a unique way. ChatGPT
Warren,
just can't do it.
You're gonna love this.
Well, that
so, at my brother's behest, I finally watched the movie Interstellar. I don't know. Have you seen it, Eric? Yeah. So, big spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it. When they're in the black hole and Tars is all like, well, how do we do this? How do we communicate this information? But like, the father knows how to talk to his daughter, like, that's a leap that a robot can't figure out. Not really, And so I feel like that movie provides a meaningful answer to that question, which is like there is this human touch that's needed. You know, it couldn't have just been TARS that went through the black hole and fixed the problems. Like he had to do it too. So it's fascinating to think about. But you were going to say something, Eric. Go ahead.
No, I think I lost my train of thought because I was enjoying your reference there. I was like a good movie reference.
Nice callback, bro.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Just that, I think custom GPTs do give you that kind of ability to uploading documents and giving instructions and the actions, which I don't use a whole lot, but there's just between the instructions and the documents, there's so many opportunities to add your own proprietary thinking and processes and stuff. That's what I really like about it is like whatever way of doing things I like to do them, I can now kind of like make that tool set.
Well, that was one of the first things that I did with ChatGPT too. It's like I fed it a bunch of my writing samples and other things that I've worked on. And I said, okay, give me a tone, style, reference for this writer. And it spit out a bunch of stuff and things that you would, as a filmmaker, you know, you'd see scripts and you go, okay, this is the tonality of this script. And now I have this thing that ChatGPT spit out for me that I can feed it back and say, okay, I want you to write an article in this style and in this frame, and then it'll spit out something closer to how I write and how I sound, and then I can edit that. And that's one of the other things I never advocate for. Just use it straight as is. Don't use it raw. It's fine. Don't use it raw. That's not a good idea. Never, ever use anything ChatGPT or any AI platform is used raw. You, again, going back to your expertise, you need to use your expertise to vet that content, make sure that it's, one, correct, and then two, manipulate it a little bit because it's going to bring back things like I can't stand how much ChatGPT loves to use the word elevate. It drives me nuts. Like,
that's funny. Has a style that you don't like.
Oh yeah, it does. If you don't give it a style, it will use those words.
I'm going to keep an eye out for that now.
Yeah, you'll see it.
Yeah, I have a whole word list.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things,
say
though,
in the realm, please.
In the realm.
Oh yeah, yes, that elevate and in the realm. Oh my gosh.
No, you're right. I do recognize in the realm. No, my question for you is this: is like we talk about how like that human element is needed for some of the thinking, but as a filmmaker, it has to be in your brain. Like, well, I could create some of these things without a scene, without actors, maybe. But then I would say that there are definitely actors out there who think, and I think reasonably so, like, well, there's some uniqueness in the way that I would present this, and how am I going to use AI to help that? So where do you kind of conceptualize things, being somebody who's maybe behind the camera instead of in front of it, your use of actors, when you would need it, when you wouldn't, how you think that's going to play out?
It's changing rapidly. I mean, I'm literally working on a project now, and I'm in the casting stage with AI people, realistic looking AI people, and I'm casting them, and the client is approving the people, and they're not real. But I'm also talking to professional actor friends of mine who are asking me the same question, one in particular, and I'm just saying to him the same thing. You know, you've got to look at these tools and figure out how you can apply them to you. And so let's get into Runway's Act One and make some avatars of you acting, because if you are a professional actor, you're going to be way better than every other schmo that's, you know,
Yeah.
doing this.
Well,
and
Runway lets you
maybe
do a
as an
guided
avatar,
performance too, right? You can like act
Yeah.
and create your own avatar and send in a demo reel of you doing voiceover in a way that you could never do before, right?
Yeah, you'll be Andy
Yeah,
Serkis as
or
Gollum.
yeah, or scale your production so that you have, you know, you're the star in lots of different shows, or now maybe you're a good enough writer with ChatGPT's help to write your own stuff because you were only a 70% writer before and a 100% actor. You know, like or maybe it's just, you know, when you point those skills at something you're interested in, you know, you got to add a layer, like, okay, you're a professional actor, you've got these tools, but your passion is Shakespeare. Okay, well then what? You know,
I want to talk to you though about casting these AI actors. So, are you making the images in Midjourney, sending them to somebody, and then they're approving them, and then you're making your video with Runway? Probably is that how you're doing it?
Yep, exactly.
And
Just like that. Yeah.
and since Sora's come out, become publicly available, Runway, Sora, thoughts on that?
So Sora, in order to get a high resolution output, you have to have the $200 a month subscription, which I have not splurged on yet. I'm right there because between that and Operator, I want those capabilities. But that right now is a real drawback. I've used it, Sora, and I'm impressed with the camera movements in particular. Um, but for now, Runway is still my go-to for image to video.
Kling, have you seen this one? Because I've seen a lot of people making a lot of, frankly, kind of garbagey AI content that I can tell, and they appear to use Kling, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, Kling has some looks like it's doing some really interesting things. A lot of these platforms have an edge in one area or two,
Right.
where they've really
Okay.
focused. But for me, I need more overall consistency and reliability in how I work because brands are relying on me to execute on a timeline and a budget. And I can't be like, oh, what's that platform that does this or whatever? Like, maybe if I have time, I can do that. But for me, Midjourney and Runway have really become the primary tools for image generation, then image to video, and then into Premiere, where I edit as I normally would have. And I do some upscaling at different phases and stuff. But that's really the way I'm still working. I mean, it's kind of tough when you see, oh man, maybe their output's a little bit better in this way or this or that. But like at the end of the day, I need it to work end to end.
That's one of my things too. Is like, every day there's a new tool, and it's like we do this better, and I'm like, do you? And because I mean, this week we had DeepSeek, right? They came out, and then I saw a video. I wanted to watch it where supposedly OpenAI is like, they stole our work. We were already doing this. This was the next leg, kind of thing. And so I need to watch that. But I wanted to get your thoughts on, and obviously you're an AI right now. Get on board, start using it, use it for professional content and things like that nature. I remember hearing what it was 2-3 months ago that Lionsgate was partnering with Runway to do some stuff. And so I'm interested to, as a filmmaker, to hear your thoughts on that partnership, those type of partnerships.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think in our industry, it's always been learn the new tool. Like, how can the new camera, usually the new camera, how are the new cameras gonna give us a leg up? Higher resolution, or they do this and that, or now we have these different effect tools. It's always just up, you know, leveling up the tools. And so these are just new tools in that way. And so everyone's going to look at how they can use them. It's a matter of time, and all this back and forth about should we, shouldn't we, will go away, and everyone will be using it like CGI and green screen and everything else. I mean, it's not a one-to-one replacement of how we've been doing things. It's a new way, and innovators will figure out how to merge the two until we're all working in this new space all the time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's the way I see it as well. I'm like, get on board now so you can understand it, make a better use of it, and flex your expertise on it so that you're ahead of the game.
I think it'll be really interesting too, sitting on all that IP, what they can do with AI tools. How can you take
Right. They
a
don't have to worry
film and
about
make
copyright
25
violations.
films?
Right.
Yeah,
You
that's a
can
big
load
deal.
every Spielberg movie in and be like, make me another one. I mean, you could probably do that
Yeah,
at this point. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
Pretty wild.
I saw a horrific clip yesterday with manipulating Harry Potter. They changed some of the
Okay.
characters and some of their reactions and what they did, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. I saw a Tim Burton one yesterday. I mean, all kinds of fan stuff, but like to monetize it, you got to own it. And they got the whole distribution mechanism for all that. So I would think we'll be seeing some really interesting stuff coming out of them pretty soon.
Oh, for sure, for
Um,
sure.
you know, it's yeah, like there still haven't been that many examples of hybrid traditional and AI production yet. So we haven't had our Jurassic Park moment with CGI, where it's like, oh my God, this is a different kind of movie,
Right. Well, it's funny you talk about that, and it brings to mind my dad's story about seeing Star Wars for the first time. Uh,
Hmm.
I was 3, it was 77, so I was 3. I was in the car seat. I have no recollection of this, but they were at a drive-in, and my dad says he literally got out of the car to make sure that ship was still on the screen because it looked so real. And when the Star Destroyer comes by after Princess Leia's ship, which looked so good at that time and so realistic, and now we have, like you said, Jurassic Park. I remember seeing that opening day and just going, blow my mind. Here
Oh,
we
Jurassic
have
Park was so good.
real dinosaurs, and I'm a dinosaur kid, and I was freaking out.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the making of both of those films, it'll feel a lot like AI does today. Your filmmakers are literally making their own tools and new ways of creating
Mm,
visuals
mm.
and stuff. It's very similar.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One of my favorite recent films is uh, the first Spider-Man with Miles Morales, and
Hmm.
all the really cool things the artist did with that. And
Beautiful.
Such a good film.
Miles' frame rate, it was lower than the actual Spider-Man until he gets the powers. And then pausing that movie at any point, you can see a comic book frame and how they use the wording to make the sound effects just so imaginative and cool. And so it brings back, just like you're saying, the AI is just a tool, and we're going to see those innovators find new ways of using it to make really fantastic movies like that.
Yeah, that's a good example. I could see like an individual making that short film like that someday soon, where you can just apply some great style and do it all yourself. And yeah.
Let's talk about 1623 Studios. I want to make sure that we plug you as much as we can and the different things you're doing. Is that how people generally hire you, or do they usually hire you through CGA Creative? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so 1623 Studios is my day job, and I've been running this small community television center in Massachusetts for the last 12 years. So think Wayne's World in 2025,
Nice.
that's what we do. No, it's awesome. It's great. We do original content and lots of local storytelling and all the community things you'd expect from one of those stations as well. So it's been a lot of fun, but all the not all, but most of the AI work that I'm doing is just as a hobby on the side. And I stood up CGA Creative just as a portfolio site to have a place to put things, and then started to get a little bit of paid work also. So most of my AI stuff and most of the stuff we've been talking about today, you can find at cgacreative.com.
Very cool. Anything else people should do to like follow you?
I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm a little bit on Instagram at Erich Archer. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, we'll make sure to put stuff in the description so that people can contact you and get with you to do your awesome video work. I mean, if you haven't, any of our viewers, go look at his Rufus video. It is fantastic. It is just a great telling of history. And I love that you use that as a case study. You bring the story of your ancestor to life with that. And I think we'll see a lot more of that kind of thing. It'll be fascinating
It's a really
to
neat
do
video.
family histories like
Thank you.
that.
I
Thank you. I
also like
appreciate
your
it.
first artist video just because of it's fascinating. It looks real,
It's crazy,
but it's
man.
also like but it not real in the sense of like the images, right? We've been doing that for a while, but it looks like you took a camera and time traveled, right? Like, I mean, that's what it looks like. It's wild.
That's why I wanted to make it. I just felt like that I could time travel, and that it felt a little bit like that, and that's a lot of fun. I encourage anyone to try it. You know,
So you heard it
it's a
here
good time.
first.
It's
Time
hard, but it's a
travel.
good
Give it
time.
a whirl.
Yeah. Yeah, there you
AI
go.
AI time travel. There we go.
All right. We want to thank Erich Archer once again for coming to visit with us here at Tingenuity AI. Thank you also for watching our dedicated AI explorers. If you like this video, this content, like and subscribe, where we continue to interview more experts in artificial intelligence in different industries. And we also show you our tips and tricks as we play with tools like Midjourney, ChatGPT, and more. We will see you around. Thank you so much for visiting with us today.